Richard Osgood, welcome back to Butser Ancient Farm.
Thank you, Trevor.
6 months ago we were sitting in a big roundhouse having a chat about a project to build a roundhouse, and here we are in a different roundhouse, which is the one we built.
I know, we've gone from a two-dimensional plan to actually having a building. We're sitting talking in that building, and that's astonishing, isn't it, really?
Actually, it started, just over a year ago with a conversation over by one of our other buildings over there and saying, wouldn't it be a good idea to do a project involving us and Operation Nightingale? And that wasn't even on paper then.
Yeah.
You hadn't even dug the archaeology.
Yeah, it's brilliant, and I can see, you just have to look around this building and you can see all those little ideas and all those experiments. So we came out on that bit of paper to start with that have actually happened, but then even more that's happened throughout the process as people have come up with their own suggestions, which was one of the things we really hoped would happen, that people would really adopt this as their plan and their own house and their own idea, and the suggestions we've had. And you can just see it around here, all the different tools that have been used to build the house, the different experiments in each wall segment, and it's all come together beautifully. It's something you can look at for years and years and years, and I think that's a really valuable thing. And from a mental health perspective, this is art. This is amazing, isn't it? It really is a tremendous result.
Yeah, another great thing about this project is it's now been recognised.
Yes, yeah, no, we were thrilled with that. Archaeological Achievement Awards from the Council for British Archaeology. I think what I love about that is that it just shows wide acknowledgement of what's happened. You know, engagement and participation was the category it won in. And we know how good it's been for the people who have taken part in it, and I feel one of those people who's taken part. I've really enjoyed it, as well as thinking that it's going to be quite important archaeologically. But to see it acknowledged by the national body, I think that's great, and I think it will also be something that's going to be appreciated by those that participated within the veteran community, because it just shows that the archaeological world also realises they've done a good job for archaeology as well as for themselves, perhaps.
Yeah. One of the things that my colleague Claire actually said, probably on about the first day of the project, was that you are now experimental archaeologists at the cutting edge of experimental archaeology. And I think it's likely that a lot of people saw that as a sort of a jokey statement, and it never was. But I think now, at this point, that level of acknowledgement makes people realise, I hope it makes everyone who participated realise that was never a jokey comment, and it's actually the truth, because to have a national archaeological body recognise this as a significant archaeological project is a real thank you to all of the people who've been involved in it.
It's a great thing, and I think the people that have built this should be just made up with it. It's great, and the award is just a lovely thing on top.
Yes. In general terms, how do you see archaeology as being kind of special, I suppose, to well-being?
Ooh, that's a good question, and it could be that archaeology is similar to many other disciplines, but we've got a bit of everything, haven't we, here? And I think this project encapsulates that, because you can do the academic study, research the roundhouse. You can do the physical digging. You can do the technological challenges of building something and working out how things work. You can do art, whether it's pottery or handprints on a wall or things like that. There are all these different bits with archaeology. You can do drawings. There's a job for everyone in archaeology. It could be physical, it could be academic, and then the crucial thing, the camaraderie. And you've seen how these people have built their own Butser Bronze Age house kinship group. Even sitting around a fire. We haven't got it lit at the moment, but that sort of thing, it's a morale booster. And I think archaeology is one of those areas that you can bring all those little facets together, which is great for well-being and open air. And look at this landscape we're sitting in. It is beautiful. It's great for the soul. And I think that's perfect. Same with the dig was associated with it. It was a beautiful landscape. And being in the open air, doing all these different things with nice people, yeah, it's got to be a good thing to do, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I noticed when we were in here doing this project was that development of camaraderie, and you are removed from the everyday. You are really almost transported back in time. And I think as we sit around this fire some days after we've done some of the work on the house, there's a sense in which you're able to take all the best bits of the past, which are the time on your hands, the ability to interact with other people, the absence of the stress of politics and money and social media, all the best bits. We disregard the short lifespans and the no medical care.
And the dentistry.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
So you're sort of transported out of time in the best possible way. And I think archaeology is great for that, isn't it?
Yeah. It's a perfect place for respite, isn't it? Just to get away from everything and clear your head and concentrate on something that's enjoyable rather than something that may be distressing. I've been amazed by the generosity of spirit of so many people helping the project as well.
Yeah.
And I think that it brings out the best in lots of people, even if they're not necessarily participants, those that are happy to give their own knowledge and their time. I mean, Rachel giving all her knowledge about these roundhouses, Phil Harding cutting the turves, Alice coming and opening it, all these people that are happy to give their own time. And I think that it just shows the best in humanity.
Yeah, it does. It really does. And I think everyone, certainly me included, everyone on this project has really seen that and appreciated the fact that other people care, they're interested, and they're willing to help. It's just been absolutely fantastic. So I'm fond of saying that we've had this great wellbeing project, and a nice sort of side benefit of it is a building like this. But the building is now much more than just a wellbeing project. As important and significant as that is, it's actually significant archaeologically. So from your perspective, as the field archaeologist who was really supervising the original excavation, how do you see that significance?
I think it's with all these programs we tried to do, we wanted to do the right thing by the Operation Nightingale veterans, but same with the archaeology. But more than that, in many ways, we want to do to draw out as much as we can from the project as a whole. So being able to dig a site on Salisbury Plain, that's really good, and it gave me a load of curatorial information that I needed for management of the training area as an archaeologist. But to be able to get as much as you can from it, a two-dimensional plan, to put something in this makes it much more real, and then answer some of those questions that loads of people have asked over the years about Bronze Age houses. Now, we do have some good surviving ones, clearly at Must Farm or down at Dartmoor, but they're very different. On Salisbury Plain, we just don't know. And we still might not know with this, but we're going to get some really important long-term, I think, answers from the various construction techniques that have been employed that are academically okay. They meet all the possibilities of materials used. We've been able to look at how much time it's taken to do something like this, and then how often we have to repair it. I think it's going to give us some really useful data to be able to talk in more broad terms about the late Bronze Age and farming and landscapes on the training area, which for me is really, really important.
Yeah, I don't know whether I'd say it's a unique project, but it's a very rare project that has involved the excavators in building the structure, but also simultaneously really engaged the academic world. So you mentioned before Dr. Rachel Pope. Rachel, memory serves, she is the senior lecturer in European prehistory at the University of Liverpool.
Yeah.
Rachel came down from Liverpool just for the opening, and well, I've seldom seen a grown archaeologist so excited. Just for the idea of what we've done with using these different variations on walling techniques, a lot of those chime with Rachel's own ideas about some of the sort of walls that were built, particularly in prehistoric Britain, and they're seldom tested. These earth walls have been seldom tested in experimental archaeology. So that sort of, you might almost call it a tripartite engagement, it's the best possible world. Realistically, it's the only possible world for experimental archaeology to be at its best.
Yeah, and do you know when we were building it, you come down, because the team was so quick, weren't they, in many of the elements that they were putting together. You come down each day, and if you'd missed a day, you'd come in and think, oh my goodness, look at that new bit of structure, and you're learning every single day. And just turning up earlier this afternoon, I saw that the turf wall, and we were talking about this, it needs almost like a water, because it's beginning to look quite dry, and that just shows how good the roof is. But we've got these questions about water runoff on the roof and how close you'd need to get it, and so we're learning all the time, almost day by day, aren't we, on the effectiveness of these structures that we put up, just to see what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, I think with archaeology in the field, very often the question is, what is that thing? What is that feature? What's caused that? A post hole's fairly obvious. It's dug a hole with a post in it. But a lot of the other marks in the ground, a lot of the bits and bobs you find around, they don't explain themselves. You've got no idea how or why they get there. when you build a structure, the structure does all sorts of things to its environment. As you say, it creates a watershed, it digs its own little drains, and those things can give us clues. The way people go in and out of doors can be significant, or sit in places. You know, the way we sit in a space and use it and maybe dig holes with our feet, those things generate all sorts of features, evidence that we can then sort of put back against the archaeological record.
I think it's really important. I think it's a really useful experiment. There's so much more we can do with it. That's the great thing, isn't it? I mean, we've done the excavation, we've done the build, but there's loads of questions we can ask ourselves and answer them over years. And I think this could spawn a lot of really useful work, Trevor. And the thing that's amazed me is just how beautiful it is.
Yeah.
It really is a pretty thing, isn't it? That's been built. Just incredible.
Yeah, and I don't think we ever set out with any ambition to create a pretty building. It was really more to solve a puzzle, but the puzzle turns out to be a really beautiful building.
Yeah.
One of the things that really excited and made me very delighted really was when Phil Andrews, who was also involved with this particular dig.
And the one before in 1995.
That's
so,
right. Yeah, he'd done a lot of excavation in 1995, which revealed a lot of information about that site.
Yeah.
And that was the thing that sort of prompted you to excavate, wasn't it?
That's
Right
completely,
beside.
Phil's work on that.
Phil Andrews came here. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to make the opening, but he did come, and we had a great discussion. And one of the interesting things he said to us was a remark about a feature, if you like, that we'd added to a wall after a problem we'd encountered. So he had a system for retaining the earth, and we're probably looking at about a tonne of earth every 2 metres of wall.
Right.
And to restrain that tonne of earth, we have a wattled panel, so just a series of light uprights that stick into the ground.
Yeah, not in the chalk, are they? They're
just lightly touching the ground, with some hazel woven through them to create this sort of woven, a sturdy woven mat, I guess is how you would describe it, upright, retaining all that soil, but it wasn't quite sturdy enough. So behind it, we put just another couple of light stakes in the ground, just to stop it from bowing inwards. And Phil came in and he looked at those and he said, you know, I've seen this in the archaeology. I've seen these double posts associated with walls in the archaeology. And I don't know what they were, but he said, this makes perfect sense of them.
Really?
And they're a repair. They're a kind of ad hoc repair.
Yeah.
Similarly, when he saw our chalk walls, he said, look, that's really exciting because I see so many of these without obvious walls. Can you burn one of these for me? And I don't know how much I don't know how much will there is, but you know, it's so exciting when a field archaeologist who's worked on this project, as you say, in a sense for 30 years, comes in and he's excited by it. In terms of excitement, was there anything or any things that were unexpected that really excited you?
That's a great question. I think we can go back to Phil again. The excavations he did in '95 found, I think, were 4 roundhouses under that track on the training area, and then of course we've got our house that we've added, that we excavated in 2020, and some of them are more circular than others. The one we're sitting in now is a perfect shape for the one we excavated recently, but in a couple of them there is a central post, which is a real curiosity. Why on earth do you have a central post? Now, in my mind's eye, that would be a ridiculous thing to put in a roundhouse because it's going to get in the way of everything. It's going to impede all manner of things. But when you look at it, and it's ridiculous really, because you should be able to translate the paper through into real-time space. Actually, it doesn't impede anything. And there's sorts of things we could do with this, can't there? We could put pegs on it, could hang things from it. The surprise for me is that this actually doesn't get in the way at all. Now, whether this is structurally integral to it all or not, I mean, what's your feelings? Do you think at the moment,
theoretically, we could pull this post out and the roof should be self-supporting because all of the other roundhouses we built here at Butser are self-supporting. They're just like a little conical hat sitting on top of a circular post. So theoretically, this was just used as an aid to build the roof. Yeah. It was a great thing.
Very useful but it almost like scaffolding, wasn't it? Enabling people to put this roof up. And for me, just actually that it doesn't really stop the functionality of this structure, does it?
And what was found on that site suggested that those posts had been there. They were very purposefully put into the roundhouses. They weren't just an accidental thing, and they'd been there for some time, it would appear, because of the way that the chalk had been stained. Yeah. We've no idea of knowing whether they were used in the way that we used it just as a construction aid, or whether they were used actually to prop up a roof of a particular design, or whether they were something else. As you say, a pot stand or something like that. So this is interesting experimentally on the one hand, because it shows a possible use that they could be put to. I think on the other hand, interpretively, this raises a question. Why is it here?
Yeah.
Anyone who comes in is the archaeologist. Doesn't matter if they're an 8-year-old school child, they can start to wonder what that is.
And that's one of the beauties of this structure, isn't it? That everybody has a right to an opinion, and they can be right, because we can't disprove it, can we? Many of these things. Your comment about the supports that Phil had seen before in the archaeological record, really important as well. That we are working with all of these elements from a basis of knowledge in archaeology, but there are things we're going to learn from failures of this particular structure that then can feed back to that archaeological record. And I think that's a really great thing about Butser, that you can learn so much from the physical workings of a structure like this, and how you augment it afterwards.
Yeah, it's interesting, I suppose, as you say, this kind of interpretive approach that everyone who visits here, irrespective of age, experience, prior knowledge of archaeology, can have their own say. That's really part of what we do as a public education site. We aren't here to tell people how the past was. We're here to give information and then ask questions. I think one of the great things about this building is that we've used a number of different wall types around the outside. And there's no suggestion that that's how the original building was built, but we're asking the questions. And through doing that, we kind of raise this awareness that, look, this is a test. These are samples of possible walls. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, all the material that have been used here, all available on Salisbury Plain in the Bronze Age, and that absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence is a perfect maxim for here, because we've certainly got chalk, but there's no trace of it where we were excavating at Dunch Hill because it'd been ploughed away. But does it work? Same with the wattle, same with the turf, same with the earth. I mean, there are so many different facets, and which one's going to last the best? Which one needs the most repairing? I think that's going to give us some really interesting answers over hopefully many years.
One of the things we're doing with it is actually monitoring it for its environmental performance. So on a regular basis, we're doing moisture readings inside the walls to find out what the moisture content of the walls is, and also doing spot temperature readings on each individual wall, as well as some readings on the inside of the house, such as in the roof, just to determine the temperature in the roof. So what we're wanting to look for is how thermally efficient these walls are, looking at whether one wall type might stay damper than another wall type during winter, for example, or be drier, or have more embodied heat. So one of the walls might take in a lot of heat, warm up, and actually act as a sort of radiant heat source. Conversely, such a big bulky wall, which you'd expect to have that sort of performance, it might stay cold and uncomfortable through winter. So we're looking at the environmental performance of these things, partly to kind of get a sense of how habitable different wall types and different house types were in prehistory, but also it's the sort of data that you can feed back into contemporary building practices to say this works.
Yeah, that'll be a really interesting set of statistics, and to see whether the prehistoric forebears are able to have experienced that in a sort of just an environment that they just used to it because they've lived with it, but get the science behind it.
Yeah.
And I really like that you can bring all these new scientific techniques into a study as well as all the archaeological ones.
Yeah. In truth, the building of this is only the first phase of its experimental life, and probably most of the important data will be yielded through its lifetime and after its demise. So we're only in the very earliest phases of our experiment.
In some ways we were learning as we were going along, and do you reckon there's things you would do differently if we did it again?
Yeah, I think there are a few things
really?
we've learned from that.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things is it's, I would say, massively over-engineered.
Okay.
Given that all we had was the data for the post holes, so we replicated that data. We said, well, these are the posts of the appropriate size for those holes, and we knew from the earlier archaeology that that oak was a preferred species because they'd found oak in other post holes nearby. So we chose that, which is a very reasonable set of solutions, I guess you'd say. But what we did is then put a very heavily constructed roof on. So this roof should last through the ages. It may last for another 3,200 years, we don't know. But it made it very difficult to build, and unnecessarily difficult. I think we could have really minimised the time on the roof by just using lighter rafters. So I think that's a lesson.
You think that would have made it, a much quicker build?
Yeah, and still perfectly adequately strong. This roof is incredibly strong.
Yeah.
And it's also an irregular roof because the shape of the building is irregular.
Yeah.
The roof is irregular, and it looks wonderful. It looks very organic, but it was very difficult to build in such a way that we could use the method of thatching that we're used to using here. When we do another one of these, there'll be two little things to carry forward in an experimental sense to sort of look at that again.
Okay, and we might know the most successful wall type at that point.
Well,
In
yes.
many years in the future, we might know which of these is the preferred method for the future house.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping it's not many years in the future. In fact, I'm hoping it's about next year. But, you know, those things are significant. It's not that we got it wrong. In fact, I would change very little, but just those little tweaks that you learn from doing something one way. Nothing went wrong. There was no failure here, but there were a few little things which were perhaps more difficult than they needed to be. Again, doesn't mean they're wrong, doesn't mean they didn't do it that way in the Bronze Age, but it just inspires you to go, okay, just going to tweak that next time and see what happens.
Yeah.
Well, Richard, thanks again for coming and visiting us here at Butser. And moreover, thanks so much for all of your input and all of your support and all of your efforts with this project.
It's been our pleasure, Trevor. It's a magical place, and I think the memories that have been made here over the last year to go with the excavation are going to last a long time with the participants. So thank you.